Okay, let's jump right in. We're doing a deep dive today into something, well, something you see all the time if you're around kids.
hmm Or even just, being human.
Exactly. That student who just cannot seem to focus, or the one who melts down when, like, the schedule changes.
Yeah, or just gets totally stuck on a task with lots of steps.
Yeah.
The frustration, the overwhelm.
Right. It's all about managing themselves,
Yeah.
their thoughts, their feelings, their actions.
And that points directly to this crucial skill,
Yeah.
self-regulation. Basically, it's that ability to, keep your cool when things get stressful.
Make good choices even when you really want to do something else.
Exactly. And stick with things even when they're tough.
So we've got this great stack of sources you sent over all about this. And our mission today isn't just theory, right? It's about pulling out the really practical stuff.
Actionable strategies, things teachers can actually do in the classroom, like tomorrow.
Because the big message from all these sources is that self-regulation. It's not fixed. You're not just born with it or without it.
Absolutely not. Every source hammers this home. It's key for success. Academically focused, transitions, starting work, all that stuff that impacts grades, and just being ready to learn.
And socially too, right? Waiting your turn, getting along with others.
For sure. But the really hopeful part is it's malleable. You can teach it, you can practice it. Kids can get much, much better at it.
It's not about good kids and bad kids.
No. It's about skills they have or skills they still need to learn. Thinking about behavior that way as a skill deficit, maybe it changes everything, doesn't it?
It really does. It shifts the focus from, like, punishment to teaching.
Exactly. And these sources argue that building self-regulation is just foundational. It helps kids handle challenges, build resilience,
Yeah.
become learners for life.
Okay, so foundation first, before we get into the specific techniques.
Yeah.
What needs to be in place in the classroom just generally?
The number one thing, across the board in these sources, relationships.
Right.
Strong teacher-student relationships.
Makes sense. Feeling safe, connected.
Yeah. When kids feel genuinely seen and supported, they're more willing to, take risks with learning. And they're more receptive when you need to guide them on their regulation.
Plus, they probably pick up on how the teacher manages their own stress.
That's a huge part of the modeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so relationships first, then structure and routine,
Predictability.
big time. Predictable schedules, clear routines for everything entering the room, transitions, handing in work. It cuts down on that confusion and frustration that can totally derail a kid.
Less guesswork means less anxiety.
You've got it. And telling them ahead of time if the routine is going to change, no surprises, if possible.
Right, that heads-off reaction.
It does. And don't forget the physical space. An organized classroom, not too much clutter, having materials ready, it reduces that cognitive load.
So they're not burning mental energy just trying to find a pencil.
Exactly. And a relatively quiet space for focused work. Really important, especially for complex stuff that needs concentration.
Okay, so we have the base. Relationships, structure, routine, a supportive space. Now let's dive into the how. How do we help kids actually notice their feelings and, manage them?
Yeah, this is core. The sources talk a lot about building emotional awareness first. Simple things like daily check-ins.
Like, how are you feeling right now?
Could be a quick one-word check-in, using a mood meter chart, or maybe sharing a rose and thorn, something good, something challenging.
And it's not just about naming the feeling, is it? The sources mentioned validating it.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Saying things like, it's okay to feel frustrated, or I understand why you might feel disappointed. Feelings aren't wrong. It's what we do with them.
Got it. And then giving them the words.
Yes, building that emotional vocabulary, moving beyond just mad or sad. One source suggested feeling brainstorms like, how many words can we think of for angry, annoyed, irritated, furious?
Exasperated.
Ah, yes. Tools like emotion wheels can help too, connecting the words to faces or body language.
Okay, so they can recognize it, name it, but then comes the hard part. Knowing you're angry doesn't stop you from, like, yelling.
Exactly. And that's where teaching and practicing coping skills comes in. The sources are really clear. Kids often don't just have these skills. You have to teach them explicitly.
Like, what kind of skills are we talking about?
Things like mindful breathing are mentioned a lot. Simple techniques, breathe in for 4, hold, breathe out for 6, maybe put a hand on their belly to feel it.
Seems simple but powerful.
It really can be. Also, positive self-talk, helping kids catch those negative thoughts like I'm dumb and replace them with something like this is hard, but I can try, or it's okay to ask for help.
Changing the internal script.
And physical strategies are important too. Quick stretch breaks, maybe some yoga poses, mindful coloring, even just a minute to shake it out, or dance to some music.
Release that energy.
Yeah, release the tension. And then there's the idea of a designated space.
The calm down corner or peace corner. Several sources brought that up.
Yes, a specific spot in the classroom needs to feel safe, maybe a bit separate, and you stock it with tools for calming down.
Like what?
Coloring sheets, maybe some laminated cards with breathing exercises, a journal, maybe some quiet fidgets, stuff they can use to regulate.
And crucially, it's not time out. Right?
No, absolutely not punitive. It's a place they can choose to go, or you guide them there to use those strategies and get themselves back to a place where they can learn before rejoining the group. It's about empowerment.
Giving them agency and the means to succeed.
Right. Other creative ideas mentioned were using art, like fill this paper with colors that show how you feel, or even just talking it out.
Talking it out.
Yeah, one source mentioned letting kids talk about their feelings, even just to a stuffed animal or a plant.
Yeah.
Sometimes just verbalizing helps.
Yeah.
And guided visualization for really intense moments. Close your eyes, picture your calm place.
Okay, lots for the emotional side. What about the thinking part, the planning, the stopping yourself, that inner voice?
Great question. This is where think-alouds come in, according to the sources. The teacher literally says their internal monologue out loud.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Like maybe before starting a project. Okay, first I need to read the instructions carefully. Step 1 is gather materials. I'll need paper, scissors, glue. I should get those before I start cutting so I don't have to stop.
So you're modeling that planning process they need to internalize.
Exactly. You're showing them what that self-talk sounds like. It works for academics, social stuff, transitions, everything.
Making the invisible visible.
Precisely. Another really interesting strategy is teaching kids basic brain science. Like a super simple version of the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, and the feeling brain, the limbic system.
Why does that help?
It helps them understand why they sometimes react without thinking, and that they actually can learn to use their thinking brain to manage those feelings. It's empowering, not blaming.
Gives them a framework. Okay.
And when problems pop up, because they will, the advice is,
Yeah.
don't just fix it for them.
Problem solve with them.
Yes. Guide them with questions. What's the actual problem here? How big is it really? What could you try? What seems like the best option? Build their problem-solving skills.
Instead of fostering dependence.
Right. And connect this to goal setting. Help students set small, specific self-regulation goals. Maybe it's I'll raise my hand before speaking, or I'll use my breathing card when I feel frustrated.
Makes it concrete.
Very. It ties into planning and managing their own actions.
But how do they know if they're actually doing it? If they're making progress?
Self-monitoring tools. Simple checklists. Maybe a chart where they track how often they remember their strategy. Did I start my work on time? Did I use a calm down strategy?
Yeah. So they're reflecting on their own process.
Exactly. That's metacognition, thinking about your thinking. One source called it evaluating like a detective. Why did that strategy work? Or why didn't it?
And that builds resilience, right? Because it's about the strategy or the effort, not I'm just bad at this.
Perfectly put. It shifts the focus to what they can control. That's pure growth mindset thinking.
Which the sources also mentioned linking this to.
Yes, growth mindset and self-efficacy, the belief in their own ability to succeed. And don't underestimate using stories, reading books where characters deal with similar challenges.
Relatable examples.
Yeah, and just being really clear with instructions up front. What's expected, what success looks like, the steps. Clarity reduces anxiety.
Okay, let's talk about the more physical and environmental supports, the day-to-day flow.
Transitions are a big one. Moving between activities can be really tough.
Definitely a trigger point.
So practice them. Make transitions smoother by rehearsing them. Maybe use timers, music, fun little movements. Make it predictable.
Like a game, smooth transition challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And always, always give warnings. Visual timers are great. Bells, songs, whatever works. Just give them that heads up so they can mentally prepare.
Especially kids who struggle with time.
Structure and practice again.
Yeah.
Also, build in time for organization, like a quick desk tidy up daily or backpack check weekly. It shows organization is an ongoing skill.
Reduces that feeling of chaos.
Totally. And movement breaks. So important. Short bursts of physical activity or sensory input throughout the day.
Brain breaks.
Yes. Stretching, dancing, mindful coloring, maybe playing with some putty or textured objects. It helps reset their systems, release energy, and get ready for the next task.
You mentioned sensory. And also calming
Yeah,
sounds.
things like rain sticks, chimes, quiet music, singing bowls,
Mm.
they can signal a shift, calm the room's energy, and even be a focus point, like listen quietly until the sound fades.
Simple but effective.
And games. Games are fantastic for practicing self-control naturally.
Like what?
Jenga, you have to be careful. Patient, Simon says, listening. Controlling impulses. Red light, green light, or freeze dance, stopping and starting on command.
Learning skills while having fun. Sneaky.
The best kind of learning. And finally, visual cues. Posters with rules or steps, picture schedules, hand signals. They're silent reminders that support independence.
Less nagging from the teacher.
Exactly. And one source noted, sometimes it helps to practice these skills in smaller groups first, before expecting mastery in the whole class. Less overwhelming.
So bringing it all together, what's the teacher's overarching role in all this? It sounds like a lot.
It is significant, but the sources emphasize it's integrated. First, modeling. We talked about that. Be the example of calm, regulated behavior. Use think-alouds yourselves.
Walk the talk.
Absolutely. Then, feedback. Give specific constructive feedback often. Notice the effort, not just the outcome, and use quiet signals for redirection when possible.
Keep it low-key, supportive.
Right. Recognize, too, that some kids will need more intensive, targeted help.
Tiered support.
Yes. And for those kids really struggling, make time for one-on-one chats. Non-judgmental conversations. What happened there? What could we try next time?
That personal connection again.
It matters. Also, giving students voice and choice where you can. Input on how they do work or structured choices during free time. It builds agency.
Makes them feel involved.
And finally, remember, this isn't a one-and-done lesson. It's ongoing.
Constant practice and reinforcement.
Yes. Monitoring how they're doing, reteaching strategies, helping them apply these skills in different situations until it becomes more automatic.
It really does feel like teaching any other fundamental skill, like reading.
That's exactly how these sources frame it. It's not just about managing behavior for a quieter classroom, though that might be a side effect. It's about equipping students with vital tools for learning, for relationships, for life.
These internal tools planning, controlling impulses, monitoring yourself, reflecting.
That whole cycle, it's fundamental.
Okay, so if teachers consistently weave these strategies into their daily practice, the check-ins, the coping skills, the modeling, the supportive environment, the feedback loop,
Mm.
thinking about that cumulative effect,
Mm.
how might really focusing on building these intrinsic self-regulation skills fundamentally shift the whole feeling, the whole dynamic of the classroom, not just for the students, but, for the teacher too?
That's a really powerful question to sit with, isn't it? What changes when the focus shifts from external control to internal capacity?
It really is. And if you're looking to dive even deeper into self-regulation skills and find more practical resources and activities, definitely check out your therapy source. They have a wealth of information.